Welcome to Learn Jazz Drums. Today's video is kind of a follow-up to last week's where I talked about finger control, and this is about just having a loose touch and grip on the drums. So first, when we think about playing a drum, there's basically three different ways you can do it, and they're all like kind of a hierarchy. So you could first play the drum with just your fingers. Like there, all I'm doing is pushing my fingers to push the stick to then hit the drum, or in this case, a practice pad. And then if you want to use your wrist for the strokes, you basically have to have your fingers locked in a sense. Now there is a middle ground here, and most people find that middle ground, and they're using a combination of fingers and wrist. But let's think about it. If you're just playing exclusively with wrist, my fingers pretty much have to be stationary. And then, a step beyond that, if I'm using arm, that means that essentially my wrist has to be locked and my fingers have to be locked. So this is why I find it really important to have good finger control, because if you don't have any control in your fingers, you're going to end up having to play with your wrist all the time, and you're not going to be able to be as loose in your fingers as you would be if you could trust them to control the stick a little bit. And when I say control, I'm not talking about super tight control, I'm not talking about squeezing the stick, because I'm all about being loose here. So let's look at the way that I play it if I'm just playing wrist. Right here I have my fingers kind of locked. And they're a little bit tight around the stick, definitely tighter than I want them to be. So then if I've practiced my finger control a lot, let me go to just using fingers. Not quite as loud because it's just my fingers and there's not as much downforce that I can create. But if I combine the two, that's where the sweet spot is. So basically my hand is doing this, and my fingers are able to be super loose because I can trust them to control the stick. Versus, let's do it in my left hand, because my left hand honestly is really bad match grip because I've played traditional exclusively for about the last 10 years or so. So I'll show you with match grip what it's like if you don't have finger control. So I'm trying to be loose here, but I can really feel a lot of kind of tension in my hand and just in my brain because I don't really trust that this is going to do the job. I feel like if anything goes wrong in the bounce, then my fingers are not going to be able to do anything about it. So that's why it's really important to have good finger control so that when you're combining fingers with wrist, you can trust every aspect of that grip. So that's how this relates to last week's lesson, but then on top of that, I just try to have the loosest grip possible. So to the point of like, start out by just hitting the drum and just letting the stick fall. If it falls out of your hand, that's fine because you're trying to find this sweet spot where it's just barely not going to fall out of your hand. That's kind of where it is for me. But let me go a little bit beyond it. There it is. Yep, found it. So this is how I try to strike the drums at all time. Now granted, if I'm trying to play super soft, super pianissimo, I can't really do that. I might use more wrist, but make sure that I'm lifting out of the drum and getting the best touch I can. But then the louder I get, the looser I'll get in my hand, so watch. I'll do that again a little faster, but on the practice pad. So notice how the louder I got, the looser my technique got. That's pretty much how I play it all the time. And really, that's the best way to do it in my opinion. If you're going to try to keep the same kind of tighter technique using mostly wrist at all volume levels, you're going to end up getting to a place where it's super loud and your touch isn't going to really fit and it's going to be a little harsh. Also, it's just easier to do in general. It's just easier on your chops, and it's easier on your hands in the long run, and will hopefully prevent any sort of injuries and so on. So just to review really quick, using last week's finger exercise is really helpful so that when you're using your wrist, you can also be using your fingers to help out and loosen up your technique. And then you're going to do the exercise where you go all the way down to the loosest grip you can possibly do, to the point where the stick is falling out of your hand, and then you just grip it the tiniest bit more than that so that it doesn't fall out of your hand. And in the process, make sure that the stick is coming back as much as it possibly can. You don't want to prevent it from bouncing back, because that's what you want to utilize. You want to utilize that bounce. It helps you with everything. So if I play it about this dynamic, it's coming back there all on its own. I'm actually stopping it right here with my fourth finger, so it would go a little bit further, but it would pretty much fall out of my hand at that point. But I want to let it get all of that. I want to make sure I'm not preventing it from bouncing back like this. That's a little bit too tight. And then practice that scale of dynamics to where you have a little bit more control. Maybe I'm using mostly wrist at a really quiet dynamic, or even arm, depending on how your body chemistry is. And then the louder you get, the looser you get. I hope this was helpful for understanding how to practice and achieve a looser grip on the drums. And let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd really appreciate any feedback and any ideas you have for future videos, because I love making these and I'm coming out with new ones every single week. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and also hit that like button to show me that you appreciated it, so that I know what to make in the future. And thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Also head over to learnjazzdrums.co, where you can sign up for the mailing list and get a free transcription and a free course there. And there's a bunch of blog posts, soon to be a podcast as well. So definitely check that out. And thanks so much for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one.